many of you train your own maid servants
Live streaming
to
is
hold
on.
to serve and to speak a few English, but we know English. Do you invest 10 minutes of your day doing that without doing how you expect perfect service? And so these are nuances that one is talking about, right? So please do not ever create a model. I have seen only two kinds of managers. One kind is this, the other. Oh, one is wise, the other is otherwise. So no, there is a whole continuum between the two. There's one Buddha and there are a billion Buddhas after a Buddha, but those Buddhas have gradations of capability. Each of them is a potential Buddha. But they haven't gone there yet. But they have it in them. They have it in them. So the amount of attention and respect you bring from your people is a determinant of leadership. You must be sensitive. Nelson Mandela is traveling by a plane and the engine is one engine plane and the engine is malfunctioning and the pilot says we may have to crash land. Nelson Mandela is a world-known figure and members of parliament, three of them traveling with him, and Time magazine journalist is traveling the same plane. All of them are looking at Mandela's face. You know, Mandela is reading a newspaper as though nothing has happened. The others are terrified, but Mandela's दिखाई नहीं दे रहा emotion face में. So luckily the pilot navigates properly, he lands the plane, and the Time magazine reporter who was reporting this story said, I walked up to Mandela and asked him, sir, weren't you afraid that it might crash? He says, yes, I was afraid. But looking at your face, one couldn't make out. He said, Mandela is used to see his face being seen by millions of people all the time. And Mandela knows that a twitch in his face will send messages across. A nervous twitch here would mean that you'll all be terrified more than you are. So I have to be very clear what my body looks like to them. So this ability to understand that it's a human situation you're working in, damn it. It's not even the plane, it's a context in which you, human context that you find yourself in. Everybody is watching you if you're there at the top. And what you wear, how you look at them, what you say, every word you utter. I'm not saying that you have to be paranoid about every word you utter. What I'm saying is that the nuances of what it means to connect, to engage people, would mean that you are exactly. See, there's this guy in Hero Plant. This started a riot. The guy faces that old elderly worker who says, "Sir, छुट्टी चाहिए, क्यों चाहिए?" सर, पिताजी का देहांत हो गया. तो छुट्टी में थे 7 दिन पहले. मेरे पिताजी का देहांत हो गया. पिताजी का देहांत हो गया. कितने उम्र के थे? 86 में लोग मरेगा तो नहीं कब मरे. न घबराने का क्या बात. This is my great David, my father. Whether he's 86 or 186, how does it matter to you? And all the workers got agitated. Because you have not understood what the death of a father means to whosoever. And I'm not saying that you have to cry because his father is dead. I'm simply saying the ability to nuance your conversation, modulate the tonality of your voice. That's the art part. It did not come from the strategic intent. It comes from the art of understanding who are you talking to, to what extent. So it requires practice, it requires improvisation, it requires the ability to, subtly. ऐसा है कि ये भी craft है. And unless you know what that craft is, Mr. Bachchan is reporting that I was traveling this plane with a gentleman sitting next to me. As I came and sat on the window seat, on the first seat, the man sitting next to me did not budge an inch, he did not ask me my name or did not greet me. Who does not know Amitabh Bachchan in this country? But for the first time I saw somebody, he appeared to be an Indian, but he does not even recognize me. Doesn't want to talk to me. I was surprised. So after 5 minutes or 10 minutes of flying, he says, so I had to, I got restless, I introduced this is Amitabh Bachchan. And the gentleman nodded, he said, yeah, thank you. And he did not introduce himself, he just said, hey, nice to meet you. And so the man got restless, Mr. Bachchan got restless, that he's not asking a question, doesn't want to prolong that conversation. And as I want to get down from the flight, he took his card. He said, I took my wife and which said, well, so this is my card, can I, give it to you? He said, yes. And if I may know your name, he said, my name is J.R.D. Tata. That's what he said, Mr. Bachchan. Not that he did not know Mr. Bachchan. So the fact is that how do you conduct yourself? How do you nuance your conversations? How do you get along? And so there's a whole range of. No, I'll tell you, the art is that you should look at a mirror, Jagdish Prasad, every time you go out to your office. And look at your eyes. You know, the Sufis call it nazar. Is your eyes looking like that of a hunter going out to hunt? Or are they looking like a pair of caring eyes? I know a pair of caring eyes is very different than eyes that are looking for figures, latest figures, you know, the hunting eyes. And so if you're going to go into hunting eyes with a person who's emotionally distressed already, he'll close up, he'll be nervous completely. That's the art part, right? The science is that you still have to, you know, we were teaching strokes in our classes in Lucknow, and students were taught that if you give psychological strokes, which means feeling good about a person feeling good about himself, he will be more productive. So they go learning about strokes to the photocopier who's been photocopying their documents for 25 years. So the guys are newly learned knowledge from organization behavior classes. Go to him and say, Nima, his name is Nima, he's a Nepali. And he said, Nima, बीवी कैसे है? घर में बच्चे कैसे हैं? क्या कर रहे हैं? 3 क्वेश्चन इसके बाद जरा फोटोकॉपी कर देना. Nima said, आपका बात तो यही था ना, फोटोकॉपी कर देना. बीवी बच्चा वाला बात आपको बेकार बोलने का तरीका भी नहीं है आपका. Like the Air India Namaste or whichever airlines does it. The air hostess is looking down on the food tray and can't even return the namaste, right? So all I'm saying is that, see, the issue, Jagdish, is not about how many types of managers there are. The issue is what is the relationship that each of them has with their constituency, with their own resource space, with their own role spaces. And what is the nature of the relationship? What is the nature of the relationship? If you study that, if you're interested in that, if you're invested in that, chances are you'll be a leader. You see my point? What I'm saying? So why there are not as many leaders as their managers? For the simple reason that managerial work can be prototyped like commodity. You can train, get an MBA, run some tricks, be a manager. But to be a leader, you have to earn the spurs. It's the craft. Some leaders throw him on this. Sachin Tendulkar was not a leader. He was a great batsman. But he did not have time to invest on the craft of leadership. So he could not turn out to be on the field at least. So Saurav Ganguly came late for training. He made Saurav Ganguly run around the ground 5 times because he's late. Saurav is a little laid back. And the thing is, Sachin wanted everybody to be like Sachin Tendulkar, a perfectionist, but not everybody is Sachin Tendulkar. You have to deal with people who are very different from you, vastly different from you. If you don't learn to do that, if you cannot work with human beings who are absolutely, sometimes 360 degree opposite, 180 degree opposite, you cannot really work with a multitude of people because you have all kinds of people, all kinds of temperaments, nuances, mindsets, because the very nature of the human neural connection is that they are not connected in the same manner, like snowflakes. Each one is unique and different. The more you are nuanced doesn't mean that you have to know all the 180 people that report to you. No, I'm not saying that. But if you know one person deeply enough, by inference, others will follow you. Believe it or not, they will feel that they have been touched. You have to touch only one person. You see, this was my strategy first day of my class. Sorry, I had taken so much time for one question, but unless the question answer is crystal clear to you, I want to make sure others are listening in as well. So, in my first class, 90 students, I would pick one student from those 90 students and make him stand next to me, and I would describe that student for 10 minutes before the whole class. What would I tell about the student? When did he first fall in love? What kind of movies he wanted to see? When did his father beat him up? How much marks he got in mathematics in that exam? What was the color of the shirt he likes? Every detail, and his jaws are dropping when I'm describing it. And it is not just him. Others are also wonderstruck as to how do I know so much about one individual? So when I get out, the conversation I hear behind me is that, "Hey, kya professor hai crazy? Sabke baare mein sab kuch janta hai." मैं सबके बारे में सब कुछ नहीं जानता हूँ. वैसे एक ही के बारे में रिसर्च किया. I talked to his parents, talked to his classmates, figured out all about him, and told them to keep this confidential. And so the thing is, by default, what you're creating in the sense that details matter, you matter, individuals matter. And when you send that message, then each individual, which is the unit of creativity in the organization, they are not unit of production, they are unit of creativity, creation. They will recreate your organization very differently, vastly differently. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Are you able to understand what I'm saying? Well, I'll take another question, maybe one more. See, these Q&A sessions become very absorbing because you're not getting pre-recorded data. You're getting straight live from me, whatever little I've learned about leadership. Yeah. Anybody else?
Thank you so much, sir. I am really happy and glad that I asked you this question because the way you have explained the things and the way we have put the examples together.
Thank you,
It was
Jagdish.
quite helpful.
Appreciate that. Next question, please.
Hi,
Hi. Hi.
Sir, I just want to ask regarding like your evolution of leadership. It followed the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, both socially and technologically. Now, my question here is like this first step had a lot of gestation period, like civilization. It was a millennia in making. The industrial revolution was about some years, and now this digital communication era also spanned a shorter period of time when compared to industrial and and knowledge step. The last step, it was much faster compared to other cycles. What my question is that in future will we be able to predict or will we be able to classify the nature of leadership and will we be able to define the steps and structure or maybe even will be in a position to coach people into leadership means because of the kind of evolution and the fast dynamic nature of change in the society both technologically and socially.
Yeah, you see, the faster the environment gets, the deeper has to be your understanding of leadership. Because in the fast-paced world, what does matter is depth. You'll understand that when you go and look at what is the value proposition. You saw two little clips, right? One Bernstein performing, and before that, another person. Everybody picked up the depth, right? Yes or no? There's no question of who was more energetic. So the point is not speed alone. Speed is critical. In the information world, you have to be very quick to adapt. This is absolutely critical. But there are criticalities beyond adapting to new roles. You have to not just adapt yourself, you have to adapt a whole lot of people in that dimension. And they're not going to see, suppose I have 90 professors. And of the 90 professors, 30 of them will be very quick to adapt to technology and very quickly start doing things the way that you want them to do. But there will be another 30 who would not adapt as quickly, right? And there will be another about 60, 70 in the middle, right? Now, how do you deal with a mass of people who are differently capable? So it's not as though in this age and time, everybody is adapting in the same manner, in the same proportion, no. So you have to have a varied way of dealing with each of these. So you have to understand that there is a granularity in your peoplescapes, mindscapes that you're dealing with. And this granularity means that each mental modulation based on their demographic, their histories and all of that, I'm not sure that you will have the time to decode everybody's personal biography. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm simply saying that you have to decode a context very quickly in the unstructured way. So you have to extract critical information based on your observation skills. That's why it is an art. You have to improve your skills of observation, of listening, of deepening your attention. So much so it's a function of refinement of your attention. It's not about technology. Technology is putting your attention spans under great pressure. And so your attention is getting compromised. You please see that. And so if you can bring back your attention, I'm going to come to that in terms of work. Maybe if I take another session, I'll go deep into what is called deep work. So there are, in the information age, the critical variable would be that how do you get out of the clutter of information? So much of excess information that you don't need. How do you deal with that? And it is not about speed. It is a function of how quickly and rapidly can you read patterns. those patterns emerging, and can you see those patterns not before others can do? Can you imagine something that others cannot even imagine? Do you see cow dung sitting there and think of gobar gas plant, or you still think of this as bullshit, which it actually looks like? And so the fundamentals are not about just speed. Speed is one ingredient. Attention is a more critical variable. And so how do you, on an everyday basis, you have to tell me what you do, how with your attention in 24 hours, or let's say 16 hours of waking time, and I'll tell you what kind of a person you are. And I just have to watch you do things for 15 hours, how your attention morphs. And immediately I'll tell you what your interest areas are, what you like to do, how you like to do it. Because fundamentally, attention is the basis of that. And what is attention? Just that, how your will, your ingenuity, how your will, your rationality, your emotional capability, your ingenuity is devoted in which direction? What is the process through which because you're essentially using your attention, frame of your attention, to sustain these capabilities within you. More of that later, but I have a question that I would like to ask is, what do I plan to undo, not what they plan to do? This is a question I'm asking you. By the time we end today, I'll leave you with some very unsettling aspects about change and something that you must look at. So the fundamental thing that I hear from your question is, how do I change? Okay, from what I was to what I have to be now, given the context is changing. Now, the moment I talk about change, I have to ask the question, what do I plan to undo? Not what I should do now, but what I have to undo. Undo means not do, right? So I have a vision for IIM Kozhikode 2047, and every day I ask myself this question: if I have to be relevant in 2047, what must I stop doing now? What will be utterly irrelevant in 2047? Will the subject silos remain the same way? Will leadership be taught in the same manner that used to be taught in 20 years back? Will I use the same case studies? How is the world likely to change? How can I imagine reshape the world? See, if you are in your 40s and 50s, and if you're building a 5-story house for yourself, I was in South Africa, and I saw this journalist building a mansion, 5-storied. And I asked him, sir, when do you propose to live here after I retire? So at what age do you retire? 60. At 60, your knees will be in such a good shape that you'll climb up 5 floors. He said, no. I said, then why did you build something that you are not going to climb up for? You'll probably live in the ground floor. And these 5 floors will be utterly easy. One of the biggest investors in India is Jhanjhanwala. He said, I was so stupid. I invested in a very big house for myself when I made money. That was the stupidest decision I took in my life. So even the smartest people make those stupid decisions. Because the context for which they are making those decisions, they don't understand how things would have changed by then. So what do I plan to undo? So I was speaking to a very eminent insurance man of India, and he's retired in Calcutta, and he had a farmhouse here and this and that. So I asked him, sir, where are you living now? He said, I'm living in a rented house in Calcutta. I said, what happened to all that property? I said, I made the stupidest decision to buy so much property. Who has the energy and the health to go and supervise property in 5? So I have put all that money in the bank and I can pay the rental. I'm in a fabulous rented place. I pay a rental. Even J.R.D. Tata, when he died, people were surprised to find that he was living in a rented house. He did not. He owned half of India. He did not own his own house. Trust me, that's true. Didn't have his own house. So the ability to make those intelligent decisions ahead of time and to know that decisions will count because the context has changed. So what I plan to undo becomes a very important ingredient of leadership. In the information clutter, what is the critical information that you really need to function properly? What are this one thing that if you do properly in the course of the day will take care of all other things? That one thing, what is it that you want? You have to spend time in that. So you have to undo a lot of other additional information, all kinds of things that are coming to you, which has no relevance to your work. In short, how is your preoccupation affecting your current occupation? If I'm preoccupied, I cannot be occupied. I can either be preoccupied or be occupied. So if I'm preoccupied, then all that excess baggage that I'm carrying in my head has no relevance to me. Yes or no? And so that is the trick in the age that we are in. How do I look at these three elements? So I'm going to look at what you might call the NPAs of leadership. What is NPA? Do you know what NPA is? Anybody can tell me? Pramod, what is
Non-performing assets.
You are so, you see, you are so uniformly deluded. Everybody has the wrong answer at the same time. Now, if NPA, if it's a non-performing asset, how can you divide an asset? It should be a liability, isn't it? I mean, currently, what you call an asset is not an asset any longer, but you may say that's accounting language. I said, why should you speak a language that is untrue, right? Like multitasking, there is nothing called multitasking in real world. In real psychology, it's not multitasking, but you still think you are doing multitasking. I'm not going to come to that now. But look at NPAs. It's not an asset, it's an assumption. It's a non-performing assumption that makes you feel that this is an asset, but it is not an asset, it is a liability. And it is not performing for you. So in the 4.0 world, what are the non-performing assumptions? What you thought were assets? Is not your experience, is not your asset anymore. It's an ass that you're carrying. In your head, that experience will be absolutely irrelevant in the way. See, just take the example from your home. Since I've become a little subtle, I was thinking some of you may have missed out looking at your body language. So I'll make it very simple, commonplace. If you were an adolescent daughter, 15, 16 years old, one day, you see, like all father-daughter relationship, the daughter will slam the door on your face. She doesn't want to talk to you anymore or listen to you. And you wonder, what kind of a daughter did I bring up with so much care, love, and attention, to come to Singapore, to America, build this for her, did that, just to see one day she slams the door on my face. Then you realize your daughter did not slam the door on her face, she slammed the door on a role that you are inadequately played. Your daughter was simply not happy with your role, not you. What was the role? First of all, you assume that a daughter is born to you. Daughter is not born, father is born. Daughter doesn't even know she is born. Psychologically, you are born as a father the day you have a daughter. And that father, being born as a father, has to grow up as a father. You are only growing old. Your daughter is growing up, but you are growing old. You're not growing up as a father. So the growth of a father is just as important as the growth of the daughter. And so the daughter says, I don't want at the age of 15 the controller-in-chief. I don't want a tormentor. I want a mentor. I want a friend who can talk to me as an equal. What does he think of himself? Now that role shift hasn't happened in you. And therefore the tussle that the father-daughter is having is fundamentally in the role clash. And this role clash can be sorted out only you creatively undo the fact that you are no longer the mature father that you assumed you are. You are a father who's not learned anything about fatherhood in the last 10 years. So you pick up nuances as to how a father deals with an adolescent differently from deals with the same girl as a kid. How the father should talk. Our Shastras give us a whole dossier. Say after 16, you should not think of your child as, you must think of him or her as an equal. If you make the mistake of thinking she is, you're going to be up against. So same with technology. The same is the truth. Technology is exponentially growing. You're only growing old with old one. And you curse technology, but you can't curse it. That's happened. Right? So what I plan to undo is fundamentally predicated to the questions that I'm asking. The non-performing assumption of leaderships that do not perform anymore because they have overstayed their utility. The first assumption is leadership is a position. The moment I say leadership is a position, I am talking about positional leadership, which does not work anymore. Where is the position? God damn it. Where is the position that I have? What are the trappings of the position? I may be still called a director or a CEO, but they see all that classified me as one. Nobody can see me in my office, in the grand office overlooking the Arabian Sea and sitting on my corner office. Nobody can see me, the power that hangs around this office. 3 cars waiting, 2,000 people waiting on you. Nobody can see that anymore. We are on equal terms on the same platform. So positional leadership is going to go for a toss. And that's an assumption that we have that position makes you a leader. No. Azim Premji's a secretary sends out a message to all the 30,000 people saying that please don't park in this place. This is parking place is meant for the chairman of the company, namely Premji. Within 5 minutes, the secretary sends out another, Mr. Premji himself sends out another mail correcting his secretary's thing, saying that this parking place is meant for the person who comes to office first. If your chairman comes to office first, he'll park there. Otherwise, whoever comes first will park there. So he converts in one line a position into a performing position. Are you with me? So positional value is the least common denominator. It is what is called in public sector L1 variety of leadership, and it does not work in practice. So you could use your position to extract work or whatever mileage. You're going to get a limited return on your investment. Why limited? Because people will give you obedience based on how long you're on that chair, how much damage you can do to them. They will assess your nuisance value and then give you. It's like going to be like extracting truth or extracting income tax. Same phenomena. Positional leadership. It does not work. In high-performing organization, positional leadership is a real problem, real challenge. Unless that institution is like the army and they have to go to war, that's where positions matter a little bit. Even there, this is being challenged and changed the status quo. The second not-performing assumption of leadership is expertise. If I'm very good in something, I'll be a leader automatically. Functional excellence does not make you a leader. See, in fact, if you're very good in something, people will be jealous of you. They will try to pull you down. You see my point? And you will also feel bad that being very good, you're not given your just welcome. I was in a company where somebody got a promotion. The boss says, not just a promotion, sir, 3 more increments. Plus, we are going to post you in the first year foreign assignment. So you're euphoric, jumping out of your boss's office, and you meet a colleague who you thought was inferior to you. You meet him and says, "The foreign posting, bola boss ne 3 increment bhi mil diya. बोला मुझे भी दे दिया था increment, हमारा तो foreign posting already हो गया है." अच्छा, यहाँ तो कुत्ता बिल्ली का भी promotion हो जाता है. So your euphoria of having got something is nullified because everybody else got it. It has no value anymore. So expertise as a determinant of leadership is a very dicey phenomenon. You have a toothache, right? And you want to go to the best dentist in town, you're looking for whom to go to, and then you figure out this guy has the best expertise, he's got the most highest qualification, the best equipment in town. So you're about to go to him, somebody says, please don't go. This fellow is caught in a scandal, he's probably having a tough time with his wife. And he may pluck the wrong tooth, he's in that mental state. Even if it is 1 out of 1,000, he might pluck the wrong tooth. So are you still going to go to him? No. You're going to doubt his expertise because expertise is not a permanent, enduring phenomenon. Your expertise, in fact, your efficiency will make you deficient if you do not know how to evolve from expertise to something else. So if you're going to recruit let's say 1 person, you have 2 people interviewing for the job. It has got specifications of a certain technical kind that you need. And then you are about to get the person who's better qualified the job. And then all of a sudden somebody tells you, there's data now emerging from his references that he has fudged his travel bills twice in the last 2 jobs. So you have to rethink whether you will give him the job or not. So his expertise is only secondary to something deeper. Expert is you're not looking for expertise, you're looking for something more. And that word is flexpertise, flexibility of expertise. To nuance that expertise, the evolving nature of the demand. You're interviewing for 2 people and you ask one of them, look at the tower behind me and tell me what is the height of the tower. The fellow who actually knew the height of the tower by reading it in a history book will tell you, sir, this is the height, I've read it in a book. He said, very good, I didn't know that you're so well prepared. Second person comes, you ask the same question. He says, sir, give me 10 minutes, I'll do a little measurement and tell you. He says, how will you measure the tower in such a long thing? He says, sir, I don't want to measure the tower, I have to measure the shadow that has fallen. And based on the ratio, I'll calculate the approximate height of the tower. So he said, okay, so I have to give this one job. Whom do I give it to? The guy who's memorized it has the expertise to vomit to paper what is committed to memory, or somebody who's skilled enough, who hasn't got the expertise, but he's got the learning curve and the curiosity. Whom do I give the job? All of a sudden, yes, Sumit. Sumit, unmute.
Yeah, I would prefer second guy because probably he's applying his whatever knowledge he has.
Yes, and so knowledge that's stored as expertise, if it is not flexible, if it doesn't become flexpertise, that knowledge is going to work. It will only inflate your ego. I know so much, nobody has as much as me. There's this little kid in Gujarat who's polishing your shoes. And what you observe is that he's carrying an English version of Times of India with him. So you wonder, somebody who's polishing shoes, and if he reads English, why is he still polishing shoes? He should do something else. In India, if you read English a little bit, you don't polish shoes. So you walk up to him and say, "Aapko English aata hai?" Sir, nahi aata hai. Nahi aata hai, फिर भी तुम Times of India लेके क्यों घूम रहे हो? वो सर जिसका जूता पॉलिश करता हूँ उसको बोर हो जाते हैं, इसके लिए थमा देता हूँ. The guy gets so bored that I give him a paper and he, when I'm polishing his shoes, he has something to do. So look at his expertise. So his expertise is flexible enough to lend itself in a manner that adds value. So it's a value creation. It's not expertise that creates value. It's expertise that essentially addresses a problem or creates a solution or creates value for you. Essentially expertise at the service of the customer or the whatever, your constituency. So saying he's such a good expert, IIT, MIT, Jack Welch made the same mistake. He started recruiting in GE with MIT and all those grads, and he realized that, it is not MIT or Harvard that gives him what it does is basically his intensity, his energy, his integrity. These are important issues. And so it is very important, okay? Leadership is authority. That's another MPA. Why authority is such a problem? Why authorized leadership is a non-performing assumption? Because you can authorize only this much. What I am authorized to do is somebody else telling me what I am capable of, how much I am capable of. Tumhara travel allowance itna hai. This is yours. So I'm bounding myself in the. So the thing is that you can imagine. So authorization means that there are elements of leadership that we are completely ignoring beyond the authorization process. So if I were to ask you a simple question, who's more powerful, the current Defense Minister of India or the Secretary to the Prime Minister of India? Who's more powerful?
Secretary of the
Prime Minister. Why is the Secretary more powerful? What is it?
He can influence it.
He can influence
He has
the
the
Prime Minister and
power.
he's close and he knows what
Right.
is being.
That's precisely the problem. So you see, the moment you talk about authorized power, you're talking about power that is restricted by the definition of who authorizes you. But if your thing is about influence, not definitions, then influence is like fragrance. You see, you have a seed that grows into a bark of a plant and then it becomes a beautiful flower. And then the flower becomes fragrance, and the fragrance transmits the value in multiple directions. So influence is like that. Authorized power is like the structure of the plant from where the flower grows. So you can grow only this much. You cannot. Your banana tree will remain a banana tree. But the fragrance part, so influence is like that. So if I know how to exercise influence, irrespective of what authority I have, if I learn the trick of exercising my influence by resourcefulness, then I would be a leader wherever I go. Doesn't matter what authority you give me or you don't give me. You see my point? I will know how to exercise leadership. So leadership is not a function of position, not a function of expertise, not a function of authority. Then what is it a function of? That's the art part, right? So I have demolished many of the assumptions that you had, but I have not established what it is that makes you a leader. And that is the critical value. That's what makes a leader, is the ability to look beyond these three non-performing assumptions. So what would be the fourth? The fourth would be, how do I change? That one word defines what leadership is. When I was offered this job in IIM Kozhikode, I'm going to be a little more autobiographical now, to give you a real example. There was a 4-member committee in the same room from where I'm speaking. I was just I was in Singapore. I was dean of a school, so I was given airfare. So I came. I did not even know that Calicut existed, and it was a good city. I just came here. Time Singapore chal ke kaun yahan pe aayega? And that too, this is a government salary. So I came and who did I see? I did not know who he was. Later I came to know he was E. Sridharan, Metro Man, who was the chairman of the selection committee. Okay, so he asked me the first question. I was, nonchalant. Whether I had the job or didn't have the job did not matter. And so he asked a question. So what if one were to argue that you're too young to be given the leadership of IIM Kozhikode? I was in my early 40s. That was my first term as director. I come back for the second term, by the way. So I said, how can you give leadership, sir? You can give a position. You can't give me leadership. It has to be earned. And so he got a little... She said, what is your vision for IIM Kozhikode? I said, I have no vision yet. What vision will I bring to a place I don't know? What I see is you put me in a guest room where the door creaks when it closes, where the tea maker doesn't make tea properly, where the sofa springs are coming up and not going down. When I come here, if I do come here, if you offer me the role, then I make these things work. That much I can tell you. So I realized that he gave me the job. When I came here, he came back after Mr. Sridharan came back after 4 years. And then he saw me picking up chewing gum from the road that leads to the director's office. So he told the students when they asked him, what was your selection like? And he said, look, it is not the job of a director to pick up chewing gum from the road, but if he was doing it, it only means that he is modeling something that makes the campus look so clean in the middle of monsoon. There's absolutely no dirt here. 100 acres campus. So the thing I'm trying to share with you is that the assumptions that I had made about what it means to lead, those assumptions have not stood the test of time. And so what I would like is the change that you see what IIM Kozhikode ranked for. When I came in, you should have seen the place. I hadn't heard of its existence. The fact that it is ranked ahead of my own alma mater, which is Lucknow. Today, Lucknow looks like a funeral place now because they didn't realize that, we have to. So somebody asked me, how does it feel to overtake Lucknow as an institution, which is much older than this place? I said, I feel like a lot like Kalidasa, who's chopping off the same tree on which he's sitting for 35 years. I've served Lucknow for such a long time. It feels bad to see my own institution rated below me today. But the fact is that it is not about me as an individual. It is about the change process, the momentum of change. And so if I have to look at change fundamentally from the perspective of the leader. So if you ask me, what is the job of a leader? He has to engage. But why does he have to engage? Because he has to change things. The way it is now to what it could be in the future. So how does one change? What happens when you try to change anything for that matter? So just try to change one of your habits, right? And you realize if you just stop drinking coffee or tea in the morning, you'll see the whole day, you'll have a problem, right? You change anybody's behavior, salary structure, you'll see what happens. The resistance to change is just as formidable as your agenda for changes. So what happens when you try to change a person essentially looks back at what he's going to lose. First of all, he's worried about the pain that involves him going out of his comfort zone. Change is pain. People like change, but they don't like the pain. So if divorce procedures are not that tedious, a lot of people would have run away from marriages. But they calculate the pain component and said, okay, yeah, that's why America is a functional country. They made divorce just 1 hour, $200 and in 1 hour you get it. But in India, it's such a huge process. So the pain of it has kept us in many places. Why is the pain an issue? Because the pain is something that accompanies our psychological entrenchment to the past. I do not want to lose anything I have. I want to gain something without losing anything. If I lose something, including my comfort, I want to resist it. So the job of a leader then is to be able to sell pain as though it was not pain into something more interesting than pain. Or if there was pain, there's something ahead of the pain. So if I were to ask you, please go and stand in the hot Kerala sun at 32 degrees with this kind of humidity for 2 hours, you'll curse me. Why would I go and stand there? I said, if you stand there, sir, 3 things will happen. Your metabolism will increase. You will never suffer from your stomach ailment that you're going through now. And more so, you are going to get a promotion to Himachal where you wanted to go all your life. And you say, oh, sir, why 2 hours? I'm just stand here for 2 days if you want. And so the same pain looks so much more bearable because there's something at the end of the pain, right? So be able to articulate the process in which pain looks like a gain, the ability to communicate that vision, and the ability to galvanize, mobilize human energy in the direction of the future is the function of the leader. And so what the leader will say, this will be the result, this is the future. Don't play not to lose, but play to win. There's a difference between playing not to lose and playing to win. Playing not to lose means I want to hold on to something, like a monkey holding on to nuts, and therefore it can't take its hand out of the jar. If you just drop the nuts, it will take. So I don't want to lose that, plus I want to gain freedom. You can't do both. You have to lose something in the material world. Lose something in the material world. Once you lose it, then you play to win, which means I'm going to lose this, but I'm going to play for something bigger. And that appetite for risk will come only when you see the future framed in a way that it seems like a game. It's not just a pain. So in simple language, how do I make pain saleable? How do I make pain endurable? How do I make pain exciting proposition? Suppose if Shah Rukh Khan were to give an advertisement in Times of India and said, I'm going to climb to the steepest range in K2, which is very dangerous range to climb, and you may not come back alive. There's every possibility that you might die on the way. Food resources are limited, weather is inclement, but I'm going there anyway. Who wants to accompany me? How many people do you think would apply? How many think lot will apply?
Several.
No, lot will apply. You'll be surprised. A similar thing happened to an explorer. A lot of people want to go there. Because there's in the human being, there's always this extraordinary sense that I want to be there. I mean, if Shah Rukh Khan goes, I can go with him. You will be surprised how many fans will go. You know, they kill themselves when some leader is arrested. You see what's happened in India. People self-immolate themselves. And so the point I'm trying to say is that the ability to reimagine the future, the ability to reimagine what you're likely to gain if you go there, and the ability to communicate that is an art, it's a complete craft. You can't imagine doing it as a scientific way. It's not a scientific method. But you have to understand that this is a universal issue that I have to change. So what kind of changes, what kind of resistance to change would I have if I want to change? There are 3 levels of resistance you'll have. Don't worry about change. Worry about the anatomy of resistance. The first resistance will come from, oh, I don't know it. I'm not informed. So how will I change? You didn't tell me. So first level of resistance will come from not being informed. So if you announce the change agenda like Mohika, bend over, here it comes again. That's going to be the reaction. You are going to Hawaii, you send me to Hawaii, and you're asking me to do things your way. You are not giving me the information and you want me to change. I will not change. You see a lot of people in the banks, they had their computers on their desktops, on their seats, and they were not told what the computers will do and not do, and they will not use those computers because they were not informed. So the first cut of resistance comes from information and inadequacy. So you have to inform people. If you want to change them, you have to inform people constantly, tell them. And then even if you inform them, there is a second level of resistance. They will say, I know it, but I don't like it. At the emotional level, the information doesn't seem like saleable. It's not gelling with me. You know, there were people, look at what is happening to the farmers' resistance. What happened to Uttar Pradesh when there was a vasectomy operation across the state of UP? The entire Congress party got drowned in the emergency exercise. So I have to make it emotionally acceptable. Otherwise, the information alone, I'm informing you, you do this is not enough. So do it in a manner that becomes acceptable. Are you with me? Do you see what I'm saying? So if Netaji Subhash Bose says, give me blood and I'll give you freedom, he is arousing the emotion of people. It's not by just saying, you go and kill yourself. I'll give you freedom. Freedom is a price of giving your blood. And so you're excited by that prospect. So emotion was critical. And then the third level of resistance is, well, I know it. I also like it, but I don't like you. As long as you're telling me, a lot of children have the same equation with one of their parents. Well, I don't like you. If you tell me, I will not do it. In fact, I will do the exact opposite, the kid will say. Because there's a trust gap. I don't trust you to tell me good things that are good for me. I don't trust you. No, so the deepest level of resistance happens at the level of trust. So how do I navigate the world of resistance? By first building trust, being trustworthy. So if I have to bring about a change in my system, I have to first embody that change so that people trust that it is worth it. If they don't trust, if Azim Premji said this is a performing organization, but if I come to late for office, I'll have the same parking place, mind you. They would not trust him. He said, if I come first to office, so you perform and then you embody that performance and then you establish trust. Then you arouse the emotion, then you inform, then you realize that different levels of resistance. So change will be resisted primarily at the level of trust. That's where the real challenge comes. You see, Muhammad bin Tughlaq was known as a maverick ruler of India. He had brilliant ideas. Strategically, he was one of the best in the country. He wanted his capital from Delhi to Daulatgiri. He wanted copper coins because, so Muhammad bin Tughlaq was known for madness. None of his strategies worked. Because he was crafty, people did not trust him. You know what he used to do? Somebody he wanted assassinated, he will give up something like a Padma Shri today. Like he'll say, I honor this person. Next day, the guy will be killed secretly. So he would project, if somebody was getting an award, people were scared that he might be assassinated tomorrow. So that was his way of building trust. And no wonder, whatever he attempted failed, because people did not trust his. Although he had brilliant ideas, his ideas are all brilliant. He wanted currency notes in those days, Tughlaq dynasty. He was all the way. You read about him in Indian history, you realize that why he did not succeed was fundamentally about trust. And this is the same story about leaders, political upheavals in India. You see constantly, this is the level of resistance. We have reached 3:15. Can I take a few more minutes just to close this? Is that okay with you guys? Because
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so all we have to do is then decode habits and explore potential. So what I want to do is, you got stuck somewhere. How do you get unstuck? Becomes the real question. How do you remain unstuck? How do you change? And what is the level from where change happens? So I'm saying change happens from the frame of potential. So if I have to change somebody, I have to change that person not at the behavioral level, but at the level of potential. What does the potential mean? Behind behavior, there's a rationale for behavior. Because behaviors get formed because of habits. If I were to ask you, Manisha, for instance, Manisha, which foot do you wear your shoe first? First, left one or the right one?
So right.
Right. Okay, anybody here who wears it on the left? Can you raise your hand? Where your shoe, Reggie wears it on the left. So you'll see this class will be divided into people who wear it either on the left or the right first, and you will be surprised that you are doing it for the last 20 years as long as you're wearing your shoes. That's the same pattern you follow. And some of you sitting here do not even know which foot you wear it first. You do not even notice. But if you did, then you will see, if you have a video camera put there, you'll see you do the same thing, the same way you wear your shoes every day. Like your shoe wearing, 99% of what we do on an everyday basis is nothing but conditioned ways of doing things. You are not using your conscience, and there's no creativity involved. This is compulsive behavior. So behavior is determined by past practice, right? I've given you a Kerala elephant. The way they train elephants in Kerala is to tie a small baby elephant with a chain. And the baby elephant tries to get out of the chain because it's too strong for him. The baby elephant gives up. Now, as the elephant grows older as an adult, they don't need a chain anymore. They need a string, just a little rope. And the big elephant can uproot that rope in no time, but it does not do so because it believes that it can't do it. Because it is habituated into accepting a pattern that it has lived early on for a long time. So the fundamental shifts that will happen in your life, in your career, in your professional life, will happen from the space of potential, not from the space of habits. Because habits are predetermined, they're made you get you into autopilot. So if the strategic engagement is not happening after strategy because you're trying to engage in the same manner which is not working anymore. And you have to change your pattern of engagement with people. And you're not changing it. My father used to give me advice on something in the same tonality. Every day he will tell me, and I will not refuse. I will not listen to him. One day I turned around and said, आप मुझे एक ही बात एक ही तरीके से बार बार बोलते रहे हो. And the result is that I'm not listening to you for the last 10 years. What makes you believe that if you say the same thing in the same manner, I'm going to listen to you all of a sudden? Thereafter, he stopped talking about it. And then for the first time, I started listening to what he said. You know why it happened? Because the way he was, see, immediately as he was speaking to me, there was a defense within me that was like, oh, what's that? Like Bohika. Bend over it. See, our resistance to parental wisdom is almost because of the nagging nature of what's being repeatedly told. Parents are probably doing it for the best of intentions, but I don't accept that. Because it goes against, see, it's ingrained. My defenses have become my behavioral pattern. Are you seeing with that again? So once you tell your employee the same manner to change his habits, it's not likely to change. You threaten him, he will hide his behavior, but he will not change dramatically. The father is watching television, the son is sitting next to him, and he's playing on a video game. Father raises his voice and says, come on, go and study. He doesn't listen because he measures the decibel level and he says it's not danger point yet. The father, after 5 more minutes, raises the voice again. Didn't I tell you? Then he says, this is borderline. My odd with third kills it now. Within 1 minute, the father gets even more angry. And then he goes, he kicks the door shut behind him, assuming it's not the door he was kicking. And he hides into his study room. He takes out the atlas, puts the video game inside the atlas, and still playing. He's not changed his behavior. He's only modified it. Right? So this is exactly what happens when you try to change people. And so I'm saying that once you go to the elephant and you say, okay, in your childhood, this is what you did. But you're an adult and you're strong, and this is not the same. The context is not the same as in your childhood. You can easily uproot this. Yet you will not be able to do that. And women in India suffer the most from this syndrome. That's what I've seen. That's why IIM has gender diversity of a kind, because if somebody's mother is an IIM graduate, it changes India much faster than anything else that the government can do. So you know IIM Kozhikode is known for its gender diversity. We turned the apple cart on the entire IIM system in 2012. And today, it's gender diversity is a norm across IIMs. We have rewritten India IIM's history differently. So what I'm saying is that it's possible to break those. So this is who's saying this. The change of habits are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken. Initially, when you form those habits, they look like a light thing. First sip of beer or the first single malt that you have doesn't feel that good. Then you have the next day, then the third day, fourth day. First day, it looks like, what is this? Like a horse urine or something? Anybody drinks such stuff? After 20 years of drinking, you can't live without it. So the same way habits get formed. And the point I'm trying to make is that initially it looks light, but they become so heavy that you can't break it. And this is whose words are these? This is Warren Buffett, the best known investor, the richest man in the world. He's saying the change of habits are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken. So change will happen at the level of potential. How will change happen? It will happen when you look at reason, emotion, will, and ingenuity, and you see, where have I gotten stuck here? Where have I gotten stuck here? And if I know how to unstick, I have to change my mindset. And how do I change my mindset? I have to look at what mindsets I have. What kind of mindset I'm carrying. If you're interested, we're going to decode the mindset and we'll give you some practical examples and relevances for how do you grow your mindset. But before that, I want to give you some 5-stage strategies very quickly. How do you start the process? You start thinking, if we meet again in the course, how long are you here for this course? How long are you doing the course?
Yeah. Next Saturday.
Next.
No, you're here for a longer time, this whole time?
Yeah, for it's an
Almost.
year long. Yeah.
I'll definitely meet you once more. But let me give you 5 change strategies from the leadership perspective. And then plan non-routine time. Plan non-routine time, which means that you have to every day, in the course of the day, you have to have time slotted saying that this is not part of my routine. I was at MIT and I spent some time with professors. And so I said to them, look, you have to write in your diary for the whole year, nothing to do. Some days, just write randomly, 3-4 days. Now imagine when you write nothing to do in a day, how your brain works differently from the rest of the day. Suppose somebody said to any one of you sitting here that in the afternoon onwards you have nothing to do. You will simply see now what you will see, that you can't deal with nothing to do because you've not done it before. That's not your habit. Your habit is to do something that you plan. So things from the past will come back to you. And you will try to replicate something, somehow you'll fill up. But if you stay clear of filling it up, you'll get strange kind of ideas and insights and views of things that you'll be shocked by. You will not know that so many things were struggling to come into your awareness, but you're not allowing them to come because you're doing it in the same manner. So I'll give you a practical example. I did flight from Delhi to Copenhagen many years back before I wrote my first book, and I came there on a Saturday, and I said to the woman who was actually checking my ticket from the Scandinavian Airlines, she said, "Sir, your ticket is for tomorrow. Why have you come here today?" I said, "No, this is Saturday. I've come here on a Saturday." She said, "This is not Saturday, this is Friday." Then, oh my God, I completely, because I traveled so much in those times, I completely gained a day literally without my knowing it. So I would I'd come back from the airport and I would say, okay, I'm not going to call anyone I know in Delhi. I'm not going to call home. I'm going to see what happens if the unstructured time that I've just got plays out just by itself. So I got out of the cab and I said, "Do bag hai, ek kaam karna, 200 rupees main tumhe deta hu. Whenever 200 rupees ends, you can drop me there. Because I don't have a destination." So you thought I was a suicide case or something. He looked at me suspiciously. He said, "There are 2 ways to go, left and right. Which one would you take?" I said, "Anyway, you go towards the JNU campus. Then whatever 200 rupees ends inside the campus, you drop me." He dropped inside the JNU campus and put my 2 bags on the footpath, and I started walking within the campus. And believe me, my first book, Leading Consciously, which I wrote in 17 days, it's published in the US. And this book got written in that, the entire book sort of, because I was thinking of the book for a long time, but I was not really writing it. And for the first time, the entirety of it, the manuscript, floated. And I sat there 3,000 to 4,000 words a day I produced. I wrote a whole book. And all I'm telling you is that what happened in this unstructured time? See, what happened is when the conventional ways of thinking goes away, immediately there's something deep inside us, our potential, starts to actualize itself. So this is why reflection becomes a critical element of leadership. Every time you see a leader, you see a reflective capacity, which I will come to at the end. Learn undoing. Learn undoing means that I have to go to and say, okay, this is the thing I'm not going to do. Just try that. Look at the favorite part of the newspaper that you read, say, from tomorrow, I'm not going to read that part. Or your cup of coffee that you have, say, no coffee from tomorrow. Just see what happens to you. Just see the entrenched behavior, how it does it, how they pull you back to the same addictive habit. You see, I don't want to have a pillow anymore on my head. I don't want to have a pillow. Just see how uncomfortable you get. So you start learning and undoing. What happens, you release a lot of energy within you that feels chaotic, that feels painful, that takes away from a comfort zone, but it also gives you something that you don't realize. Undoing gives you a lot more than doing does. And so please start thinking on these lines, because what I'm telling you is something very deep. Embrace discontinuity. When a change happens, take that change. Embrace it, accept it. If there's a change in plan, change in dates, don't crib about it. Something got cancelled. Don't take a negative energy and project it in the future. When you accept a discontinuity, something that has gone beyond your control, accept it without the reaction part. And if you accept without reaction, immediately you see an energy coming from within you, which is going to be very different from what you experienced before. Ask what is new. If you have 5 people reporting to you on an everyday basis, ask them, so what is new in your life today? 3-4 days, they'll be very enthusiastic. They'll say something new. But 5th day onwards, they'll say, all new kya, sir, wahi hai. See, my students used to say that. First 3-4 days, the 5th day, say, what is new from the hostel to the classroom? Sir, what is there new, sir? We did the same thing. I said, no. See, the light, the time you come to office, the shade of light, as the seasons change, the light falling on the leaf on a tree changes, the angle of the light changes. A spoonful of soil has got millions of microbes, a million known, a few million unknown. They are churning the soil, the texture, the color of the soil is different, the light is different, angle of the light is different. Every day is a new day. What you don't realize that is that because you don't ask this question. Suppose you ask this question to 5 people on an everyday basis, their receptors to change will start getting activated. The moment you say what is new, they will say, oh, acha, saab puchega. And na kya, mujhe socha padega, actually na kya. They start observing more. That's the art of observation. They'll observe a lot of things that they did not observe before. They'll find a lot of values that they did not see before. So ask what is new constantly. And finally, develop your reflective capacity. How do you develop your reflective capacity? By observing your actions. A very simple process I'll tell you. Before you go to bed, 5 minutes before you hit the bed, look at your entire day in the reverse video mode. Entire day since you got up. Suppose you go to bed at 10 o'clock tonight. Look at between 9 to 10 what you're doing. Between 8 to 9 what you're doing. 7 to 8. But importantly, more than doing, you might look at the thoughts and emotional patterns that are emerging throughout the day. You'll be surprised. If you do this for only 5 minutes in the reverse video mode, leading to the time since you got up from bed, this is the data you will get. Lot of things I had planned to do, I could not do. Things that I thought will happen did not happen. Things that happened, I did not even think. Things I should have said, I did not say. Things I should not have said, I have said. The data that you missed all the day, it will come to you. And I know 2 people, Sachin Tendulkar, Deepak Chopra, and Mother Teresa, 3 of them, who did this exercise every day. So if you look at the entirety of day, because there is something in you like a black box that's observing every intention, every thought, every flicker of emotion, every idea that crosses your mind is recorded there. If you just activate that part of you by doing this exercise, you'll develop an extraordinary reflective capacity. You can reflect like a mirror reflects things. Leadership is a function of reflection. The active and the reflective both stay within you. If you activate the reflective, the active part will be multiplied many times. Let me end with a story. The story is about a king who decided to reward the greatest artist, since this is the art that we're talking about, greatest artist in the kingdom. And he said, I'm going to reward only one of them. One of them seems to be the teacher of the other. One of them is a master of the yesteryear, and one of them is an upcoming star. But both are great, and both have their followers, like Mr. Bachchan and whosoever is the current craze today, something like that. So their followers say, sir, the youngster should get it because he's way beyond the... He said, no, I can't decide like that. They'll both have to paint on 2 opposite walls facing each other. They cannot see each other, so they'll be partitioned. There'll be white walls. On those absolute white walls, they will paint. And after 7 days, my team will come, the jury will come, remove the partition and compare the 2 directly and give the best painting the National Painters Award. So they start the process of painting. The youngster is one of the stars. So after 7 days when they come, they see the youngsters, painters, they face the wall first, and it is so brilliant. His followers say, sir, there's hands down, he will win. Because nobody can think of anything better than this in 7 days. Such an extraordinary features in this painting. So the king says, no, we have to be fair. So put the partition down. They look at the master's painting and they're even more astounded. Their jaws began to drop. What did they see there? They saw the same painting, except that the same painting had more dimensions than this one. It was reflecting a lot more depth. So he asked the master, did you know who copied from whom? He said, I didn't copy from him or anyone else. I knew he's a great mentor. He's my student. I knew what he'll do would be breathtaking, revolutionary. So I didn't bother to paint. Who wants to compete with his own student? All I did is I polished my wall for 7 days so that it looks like a mirror. Whatever he paints gets reflected in mine. Whatever he paints. The ability to reflect greatness, ability to reflect the active, multiply it, is the job of the leader. Not to do the action, but to amplify action, collective action, and to bring it to a heightened state of energy. So imagine what reflecting capacity really means. What is Arjuna without a Krishna? Without Krishna, there is no Arjuna. Without that reflection, the action of Arjuna becomes meaningless, directionless. What is Alexander without an Aristotle? What is a Chandragupta without a Chanakya? Conversely, what is a Krishna without an Arjuna? Or what is Aristotle without an Alexander? And so both are equally important. Not that you have to be inactive to be a leader. But the fact is, your action, if it remains only your action, you can't be a leader, you become an expert. If your action multiplies and amplifies the actions of others, then that action will make you a leader. So what would be my operational definition of leader if we come back? It will not be somebody who can do more, but will be somebody who can do as well as see more. Somebody in whose company you feel taller, greater, more capable, more energized is your leader. And if that definition were to be held, then you'll understand today onwards that what you did so far in the name of leadership was just an NPA, non-performing assumption of leadership, which you must change until the next time when we meet, when you'll get an actual understanding of how do you go about each step that you take to get to where I thought you might want to go as a team. So next time I'll meet you only when you have held on to the promise of reading 50% of my book. Okay, and I want to see evidence of if you've finished it, do a review on Amazon. I'll come back to you only when you've read it. Otherwise, there's no point. You read. If you don't read, then you also don't lead in my course. Okay, you finish your reading, then I'll ask President Kumar to call me back. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Enjoy a great Sunday. Enjoy a great Sunday. Okay.
You too, Professor.
Sir, you too.
Thank you.
Well, this
Very article, sir.
Very interesting.
मैंने नहीं खा लिया हाँ